Delighted to be here on behalf of Enterprise Ireland to give you a sense of what Enterprise Ireland has done in relation to trying to respond to Brexit for our clients, and also some of the challenges that we see our clients have faced and will continue to face as we go into the Brexit storm. So it seems we've been living with Brexit for a long time already. I mean, it's been 14 months, but it's absolutely top of our agenda in Enterprise Ireland. We have our board meeting today, and I guarantee it's on the top of the agenda with our CEO and the board in terms of what we're doing and what we can do within the bounds of what we're currently able to do with state aids that Paul mentioned earlier on. And I think everybody will agree, and there's only to mention anymore, that it is absolutely the most significant and momentous challenge in the last 50 years. And it'll bring potential impacts that we don't know already, other than they won't be good, particularly from our food industry perspective. And could result in long-term structural and disruptive changes. And as head of food division within Enterprise Ireland, I know that while Brexit will challenge a lot of companies, it's our food sector, which is our biggest and most significant sector in Ireland. And Paul talked about the indirect relationships that the food sector has way beyond the manufacturing sector that we deal with Enterprise Ireland. The farmers, the truck drivers, the milk people who bring the milk to the factories. It's absolutely incredible the multipliers that this industry has, particularly in the regions. 83% of our clients in food in Enterprise Ireland are outside Dublin, and that gives you a sense of the impact of the regions on this Brexit. And we're already seeing an impact. Paul talked about the exports. We're already seeing a slowdown in export growth, and we can see the impact of the exchange rate and the referendum in last year's figures slow down the UK by about 8% to 4.1 billion. And we know that within food industry itself, there are some sectors that will be worst hit, potentially been worst hit than others. So the whole prepared consumer food sector, the beef sector, and elements of the dairy sector, particularly the cheddar cheese segment, will feel it particularly hard. And within Enterprise Ireland, we know every single food client, all clients, but in my area, the food clients who are hit and exposed by Brexit, and we're working with them as intensively as we can to help them face the challenges that Brexit will take, whatever form it takes. We do an annual business survey every year, and although time has passed and you could say the world has again changed on the Brexit front since February, we did ask a question from our clients as to what they feel the impact that Brexit will have on them. And you can imagine in the numbers I'm going to give you now that actually, if anything, that percentage is probably worse now than it was then. But back in February, our clients said to us, food clients said to us, that 52% of them expected an impact on their revenues. Worryingly, 17% felt there would be an reduction in their employee numbers, and 21% felt that there would be an impact on their ability and their appetite to invest. And we're seeing that on the ground now. We're seeing clients who got investment approvals last year and the year before, they've postponed them, they've put them on hold, and they're not moving forward, understandably, in terms of the usual investments that they will make and Enterprise Ireland will help them with. So extremely worrying. And then obviously the final number is 23% see an impact on their supply chain. So in terms of what Enterprise Ireland has been doing today, just to step back for a second into 2016. So like everybody here in the room, we didn't want the result that the referendum brought us, but we had prepared for it in the event that it happened. And within a couple of weeks, we established a Brexit unit and also a 5-pillar support guide for clients who were exporting into the UK. At the time, our initial focus was, our initial messaging to clients was all about currency, making sure they were hedged, making sure they were really tightly managing their finances. And unfortunately, that is still a very strong message from us and from others because of the way the currency has gone in the last number of weeks. So looking and still talking to clients about hedging, getting them advice from consultants and from financial people about how to manage the volatility in the currency. We also launched a UK export guide at the time, obviously for non-food clients, because Board BIA is responsible for assisting the food clients in overseas markets, as most people will know. And finally, we developed a post-Brexit strategy to best position Enterprise Ireland to help clients sustain, reposition and grow through the Brexit challenge. And I just want to spend a couple of minutes just talking about that strategy. We're into the first year of it. And it has a dual approach. Firstly, to build scale across our client companies, and that's scaling more clients more quickly. So scaling them from the time they're startups right through to established companies and into large companies. So we can have a greater number of large companies. 85% of our clients are SMEs, meaning that they employ less than 250 people. So there's a big factor in trying to make those companies bigger. So they're the ones who get to acquire as opposed to be acquired. And the second part of the strategy then is to expand reach, growing and diversifying markets, which is obviously absolutely critical with Brexit. But that's not the area that we deal with in food division, because that's the responsibility of BIA. So just want to spend just a few minutes on the build scale side of the approach. So firstly, we set out a strategic ambition to drive competitiveness across our client base through lean and other competitive supports to reduce their costs and increase their efficiencies. So they'll be better able to compete both in the UK market but also diversify into other markets. Secondly, we placed innovation centre stage, and you heard Tim, those who were in the room, hearing Tim Casey from Innocent talk about the importance of innovation. It's even more important now in the world we're in terms of whether you're staying in the UK market, you need to offer new products or new ways to offer your products, or if you're diversifying particularly, innovation is absolutely critical. And part of what we do is we help clients with in-house R&D, collaborative R&D, build their innovation capability and help them to connect with the international innovation ecosystem. Thirdly, we're seeking to drive the ambition of our clients to grow their exports and diversify, and that was spawned the launch of our Global Ambition campaign last year, which was launched again earlier this year around the Eurozone market in February. And finally, around entrepreneurship is really important through this, a difficult time to start businesses, but we are seeing new startups, and we are seeing new startups in the food sector. So Enterprise Ireland supports about 220 startup businesses every year, and our focus now is to scale them earlier, help them grow so they're strong from the beginning, as well as working with underrepresented sources of startups, being the likes of the spin-outs from third level and also the females. So one of the biggest challenges facing our clients, and that remains so from the time we started on our campaign, is preparing for Brexit. John mentioned the survey, which I'll talk about in a second. So from the beginning, we've been advising clients to prepare for Brexit, and in recent months, we've been advising our clients to prepare for a hard Brexit. And if it doesn't turn out to be as hard as we expect it may be, then they'll be better prepared, they'll have more innovation, more innovative products, they'll have diversified their markets, and they'll be more competitive. But we've found across the client base that there's still an understandable perhaps element of waiting and seeing. Because of the uncertainty, they're adopting a wait and see approach. And as John mentioned, at International Markets Week last week, we had 600 clients, 2,000 meetings with our overseas teams. We found that 14 months on, 62% of those clients still have not prepared for Brexit. Now, there's two positives from that for me anyway. One is that 38% of them had done something about it and had prepared. And also, because it's Board Bia's remit on the overseas side, not a lot of our food clients were there. And I know from talking to clients and from some evidence that we did last year in our survey, food companies are preparing for Brexit. We had one of our last questions in our February survey was, what are you going to do? What's your plan? And a much smaller number of food clients at the time said they were going to do nothing compared to the overall base, 3,500 client base within Enterprise Ireland. So it kind of gives me some semblance of hope there that we are helping food companies to prepare. Because it's critical for every company to fully understand the challenges, their own challenges. All the companies have different challenges and their level of Brexit exposure. So we introduced a Brexit scorecard, which is an online tool to help companies, and they don't have to be clients. Any individual person or company from anywhere in the world can complete this scorecard to give you a sense of your level of preparedness and the areas of weaknesses. And it's under the 6 pillars of business: innovation, people development, sales and marketing, operations, finance and innovation. We've had almost 1,400 companies fill out that scorecard to date, and what they get at the end of filling out the scorecard, it only takes about 10 minutes to do, is they get a report which highlights the particular weaknesses they have against 9 different areas of exposure, and I'll just show you them on the next slide. And what it then provides is a kind of a customised range of supports and advice and resources of where you can go, signposting for Enterprise Ireland and beyond Enterprise Ireland in terms of what you now need to do to prepare and deal with those weaknesses. So it is on our website, and if anybody wants to fill it out or even have a look at it, you can get a sense of it. prepareforbrexit.ie is where you'll find it. So before I leave the scorecard, I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are the 9 areas of exposure. And when I was looking to see where the food clients, I suppose, feel it most, it's actually across most of these areas. But just to mention a number of them, and Paul has mentioned a few already, the changing UK market dynamics. So clients are obviously facing potential market contraction due to the economic slowdown. Price pressures from their customers, we're hearing that all the time from companies. They can't negotiate price upwards at the moment, as well as potential loss of business through the UK Red Tractor campaign. Obviously an impact on profits from the perspective of the sterling, the way we've seen the rate go, as well as uncertainty leading to delayed decision making. Competition then, new and increased competition in UK, Ireland and beyond is a factor of the world we live in now. And supply chain, the impact on cost and the certainty, the quality and potential interruption to continuity and reliability of supply for clients and their supply chains. And the area that Paul talked about just now, regulations and standards, he said there was 2,000 different regulations that companies are going to potentially have to deal with if they continue to export and import to the UK. So in terms of what Enterprise Ireland has done to try and help companies focus and take a little bit of time out to prepare for Brexit, we've launched a Be Prepared grant. Now it's only available to clients, even though anybody can fill out the scorecard. But it's really it's only 5,000. It's up to 50% of the cost of preparing a Brexit plan, and it goes against consultancy, travel, and subsistence. And really, what I say to clients, even the large companies that we talk to, it's not about the money. It's actually about making the time with the management team to sit around the boardroom table and think about what is it we're going to do here, where are our weaknesses, taking the weaknesses from the scorecard and seeing how those gaps can be filled, where you can actually have an influence. Obviously there's other things you can't influence like sterling, but you can do things about it. So the output of the grant is the expected the company will get a Brexit action plan, and that will deal with the issues that have come out of your scorecard and indeed any other tools that companies may have used. I know Battersby are in a different stage at the moment, but they had their Brexit barometer, which they've closed at this stage, but a lot of information came from that. Again, companies will have seen their weaknesses and talked to Battersby about that, particularly around the UK market and diversification. So I suppose just the areas where we see the biggest challenges from a client perspective are, so it's really around competitiveness, and a lot of things can come under the competitiveness umbrella, but I suppose cost competitiveness is absolutely critical. It always is, but particularly at this time. And companies will face increased competition, not only in the UK but in the domestic market too. I was talking to somebody earlier on that some companies who are just in the domestic market feel they're safe. Actually they're not, because they're going to have increased imports coming in. So they also need to look and see how they're going to prepare for Brexit, both in how they sell to their customers and back into the supply chain issues. I was talking to a long-standing CEO recently, and he said cost competitiveness is absolutely top of his agenda, along with staying really, really close to his end customer. And you heard Tim from Innocent talk about that. It's not just the retailer, it's their end customers, on really understanding what they need and what they want. And finally, what he said was an increased and relentless focus on innovation. So, but in terms of competitiveness, Enterprise Ireland is really ramping up our suite of available support. So we have lean supports available, and we've looked right across all the things we can currently do under current state aid. If state aid changes, we'll have a different offer, but at the moment we have state aid guidelines we have to follow. We've looked across every single way we can increase what we currently offer. So we've increased training rates, we've added training rates, we're looking at on-the-job training, help with key managers, bringing technical skills into companies through graduates, etc. And then there's the area of innovation, which obviously comes under the umbrella of competitiveness, but it's a critical component of competitiveness and a key enabler for food companies to diversify into new products and in turn new markets. And I know the short-term response sometimes is to pull back on R&D spend and spend on innovation when the margins get tighter. But actually it's really critical to keep spending in that area. And we have evidence. We've just finished a survey to show, and it demonstrates very clearly, that companies who invest in their RD&I agenda, they've higher turnovers, increased exports, and they employ more people. The evidence is absolutely compelling. So we'll continue to drive that agenda and that in-company R&D, market-led research, funding for our higher level research institutes to work with companies, as well as our technology centre programmes. There's 3 in the food area. And we've also recently enhanced our innovation supports, again looking across what we can do within our current limits. So looking at better assistance with product enhancement, new product process and product development and diversification. And within the food division, we're just finishing a strategy where we will be offering further innovation supports to food companies around new innovation graduates and innovation best practice initiative. And the last area just to mention is around leadership and strategic management skills. So Enterprise Ireland works across all of our companies, and our flagship product is the Leadership for Growth programme that some of you may have heard about, where we've had 600 CEOs go through that programme. But we have other programmes for management teams, and they're short-term, one-day workshops with follow-up, individual follow-up, as well as more medium-term programmes, all are trying to build the leadership and management skills to better able to weather the Brexit storm. And obviously, finally, market diversification is key. As I mentioned, it's not an area that Enterprise Ireland deals with food companies, but Borbia is looking at their products, and they are working with companies. They're saying the same as us. It's not about getting out of the UK. It's about if you're in the UK and that's your only option, then they'll help you get stronger. We'll help you get stronger on the innovation side. And also, for you, when you can diversify, Borbia will work with you to diversify into new markets. So just to summary, just I suppose my strong advice to anybody running a company, no matter how big, it's prepare for Brexit. Focus on the areas you can influence and seek help with, so you can be more resilient whatever type of Brexit hits us. And from our perspective, just to say, Enterprise Ireland will continue to play its part in the whole of government approach to managing Brexit, and we're working with IBEC. We meet them all the time in terms of trying to get more help for companies, and that's an ongoing agenda item we have. So we'll continue to work in the meantime with our companies most intensively, those who have significant exposure to Brexit. And I think it's in everybody's interest to work together on this, no silos in terms of people going off in different directions, and we haven't seen that, but clients and stakeholders alike, to try and sustain them and reposition them and help them grow through Brexit. So we'll achieve our targets in our 17 strategy, as well as to hopefully delivering on the wider strategic plan that we have in place for the food sector, being Foodwise 2025. So I just want to finish, I know I'm between you and a coffee break, but just to finish by showing a very short video. It's not for the food sector, but we did launch it last week, so it's hot off the press. I thought for the sake of the 1 minute and 10 seconds I'd show it to you. And what it's about is really trying to encourage diversification drive. And the aim of it is to promote the advantages of sourcing suppliers in Ireland to key buyers in international markets. It's going to launch this month in the Eurozone, in 3 countries in the Eurozone, just in 2 different sectors, medtech and construction, and ultimately it'll roll out right across other markets and other sectors.
It's loyal, it sticks around, and it's not afraid to roll its sleeves. Luck has a plan, A, B, and C. And it might hit 1,000 dead ends, but it always finds a way. Luck questions the status quo. It's quick and decisive. It's hungry to learn. And luck delivers no matter what, time and again. So you can call it the luck of the Irish, Our customers call it something else.
The Irish Advantage.